Hello, everyone. We are Team DNA, and we chose to solve the design problem in challenge number 4. If you just move on to the next slide here. Um, so these are the kind of the steps that we've taken over the past 24 hours to ideate on our solution. Taking a step back, though, pretty much back to where at the beginning. If you move forward to the next slide, we have our background in our problem kind of statement and space. With healthcare being such a vast topic itself, much less in the LGBTQ plus space, we were able to brainstorm and ideate on our problem space and really hone in on what we wanted to achieve here. From brainstorming, we came up with our problem statement, which is there on the left. A patient needs a reliable database in order to find a medical provider that understands and is knowledgeable about LGBTQ plus care. From that problem statement, we were able to come up with our how might we create legitimacy among providers to increase situations where the patient feels they are receiving adequate care. To get the lay of the land, we took the approach of doing some secondary research as well as primary research to help us get some evidence and back up the need/gap for this sort of problem and that it exists, as well as guide our designs and really help figure out and define what that user looks like. So move on to the next slide here. Taking a look at our initial secondary research that we had, here are just a few statistics that are definitely we found compelling to further along our and kind of legitimize our problem here. So starting from the bottom left, 26% of the HEI, which is the Healthcare Equality Index, it's a survey that is run by the Human Rights Campaign. So the respondents of this said they have an externally promoted specific program to provide patient navigation or advocacy services to transgender patients. So this is although it's 26%, there's definitely still some a gap there in terms of the, I guess, promotion of this and having these types of services available towards transgender patients. The same survey also had 44% of the respondents say that they capture a patient's pronouns in use, and they will make sure to display it in banners or pop up so that frontline staff or other staff that they have and providers will be able to see this information and they're aware of it. And again, less than half, of the respondents responded to this in this way, 44%. So there's definitely still a bit of a gap there in disparity. Lastly, more of an overall statement, but among LGBTQ plus people who have experienced discrimination in the last year prior to this survey, which this was a different survey, Center for American Progress put one forth, more than 18% of reported that avoiding the doctor's office was for reasons out of the fear of discrimination. Moving on. So once we took a look more at just giving an idea of what the landscape looks like, the state of the just LGBTQ plus and their relationship with healthcare providers and just healthcare in general, we also took a look at other direct competitors as well as indirect competitors, doing a little bit of a brief analysis for benchmarking purposes. So the direct ones that you see here, these are our organizations and resources that are looking to connect patients with inclusive providers, which is essentially kind of what we were trying to achieve ourselves. These ones, however, ranged from some outdated UI to also a little bit more modern. However, most of them did not necessarily address the inclusivity, or they address the inclusivity in general in terms of having an inclusive provider, but did not address the LGBTQ plus related health services or issues that one might experience. And then if we move on to the last here for our research, just taking a look at what we kind of uncovered through our survey that we also put forth just in the interest of time. Before putting it out, we wanted to learn what biases and stigma that exist for LGBTQ plus people and what those experiences look like. How have those people found their current primary care doctor, if there what ways or avenues, and then how have those people been discriminated in a healthcare environment, hearing from those experiences. The insights that we were able to get from the surveys were the fact that there's comfortability in disclosing a sexual orientation to a provider. There was a range between somewhat comfortable to very comfortable, or just, definitely comfortable. So there's definitely still a little bit of a spectrum there of some people that might just feel a little bit uneasy about it. 43% of the respondents had providers assume that they were heterosexual or cisgender. So there's some heterosexism and bias involved there. And then the need for more education in general, just on LGBTQ plus sexual health for providers. The example that was brought up a few times was the just further education and stigma around PrEP and its usage. And we'll go into the next part of our process.
So before we show you some wireframes, we did come up with a user archetype to kind of fuel the beginnings of our product. And we called it the skeptic or the skeptical patient, right? So basically the user story is, when I'm looking for a provider, I want to know before the appointment that they'll provide me with relevant information and support so that I can feel comfortable engaging in an open dialogue with them. And I don't want to invest all this time seeing providers that are not inclusive. So that being said, we created these lo-fi wireframes, keeping in mind our user archetype, their goals and needs, frustrations. And we wanted to focus on 3 key features, which are the filter, so that they can filter based on what they need in regards to insurance, specialty, service, identity, and so on. Next up is our badge system, which is more for the provider side to show that they have been certified, and it would give more peace of mind to the patient going in. And also, lastly, we have the option to favorite providers in case they would like to refer these providers to friends and family. And we will now introduce our prototype, which we have named LGBTQI Identify. And I will take you to the prototype now. So here you are seeing our landing page, and we try to incorporate soothing colors and keep a trustworthy atmosphere throughout the whole website. And here we have the option for both provider and patient, right? Since we have introduced the badge system, so it is a twofold. But we will go with the patient flow, which is coming to our search bar here. And so here they can put in what they're looking for or who they're looking for, and their zip code, and that would take us to our search results. Again, here we have our filter bar to make things a little bit easier for the patient to narrow down the provider that they're looking for. And we have this list here, which gives relevant information to the patient. So what type of doctor, where they're located, their services that they offer, and of course, our badge system. On the side, we also have a map so that it's easier to see where they're located. So we are going to dive in and take a look at Carrie's profile. And again, here is an expanded version of what we had for the search results. So more about the doctor, their services, and especially their LGBTQ experience and competency. So more information to make the patient more comfortable so that they'll feel good about booking an appointment with them, knowing that they'll receive the care that they deserve, and as well as some reviews at the bottom. So let's say our patient is ready and comfortable to book an appointment. This will take us to a contact form, which they can fill out with information like their sexual orientation, the pronouns, and the reason for their visits. So once they've filled that out, the flow is complete, and yeah, the form has been sent out. And we come to our last feature that we will hope to continue building on and add as a moving forward aspect is our saving, favoriting the providers that they had a good experience with and things like that. And with that being said, we'll come back and I will hand you over to Ryan.
Yeah, so we are now going into like taking a step back and looking at the product as in a broader sense. And so in terms of the core functions that we wanted to be sure to hit to when we were designing for the skeptic is to, one, create the trusting relationships between the skeptic and the prospective provider. Two, expand the patient's choices by presenting qualified doctors from both large and small practices. So one of the things that we noticed in our competitor analysis was that the websites were mostly showcasing doctors from smaller practices. And so we thought that it was like interesting that larger hospitals did not have or like were not present on there. And so that's something that we wanted to work towards, and then finally empower the community members through education and transparency. So that's where we are going to really hit on for the badges. Just briefly going down the key buying factors, making sure that like they're accepting of identity and knowledgeable. And then the value added that we are bringing to the table are going to be looking at the accessibility of the profiles and like making the profiles like consistent so that prospective patients know what they should expect. Next slide. So moving forward, we are still in development for sure, but we need to really look into designing the questionnaires, the certificate program, and looking at developing the Figma for the mockups for providers. In terms of launch, we probably would want to start in like 1 or 2 locations. For this presentation, we chose Los Angeles and Milwaukee because that's where me and Bo are from. And then we would advertise to LGBTQ spaces and nonprofits in the area and then grow from there. And it would be nice to have a data analyst come on the team and scrape. In terms of growth, we might want to build a mentorship community and market to residency programs. Next slide. In terms of financial viability, we ran some numbers and we came out to the total cost of goods sold. So the total amount of money it would take given a fair wage to complete this project would be around 22,500 and take around 365 hours total. And so the main points and concerns, the recent events of the Roe v. Wade overturning will definitely increase the need for this type of service. We will need to explore different market segments. And so really getting into more of those personas. Next, we would need to consider the vetting process and then figure out how to get critical mass. And then finally, figure out long-term funding, whether that be from nonprofits or from donors. Yeah, and I think that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.